is almost 21st century. For example, again, the conventional story is Khufu, who was a pharaoh, decided to have this built. He said, cut a line into the bedrock because I want to be buried here. And then as they were building it, he changed his mind and he said, no, wait a second, I want to be buried in number 5. And then he changed his mind and he said, no, wait a second, I want to be buried in number 8. Now the precision of this passageway, the descending passage, they know by laser, it's more than 300 feet long, and it deviates from laser perfection by 1/8 of an inch. The Egyptians did not have the capability of doing that work, no matter what the Pharaoh may have wanted. But when you bring an engineer, such as Christopher Dunn, to look at this, he believes, and this relates to some of the other subjects that we're discussing in terms of lost technology or free energy. Christopher Dunn believes that the Giza pyramids were power plants. And how they worked was that there are tunnels, a series of tunnels that go from the Nile. And from the Nile, they go straight to and underneath the Great Pyramid and the other 2 pyramids on that site. And that in his case, he believes that it was chemicals they were using to create hydrogen. But other people believe that what they were doing is they were moving water, and it was gravity-fed underneath the Great Pyramid, and that at one time there were mechanisms inside the Great Pyramid that were capable of splitting water into hydrogen and oxygen, creating energy. So that I find actually is a more logical idea than the idea that it was a tomb. The thing, though, is that if these buildings were there 12,000 years ago, were abandoned and actually shut down because of the shift of the Earth from its perfect alignment off to 23.5 degrees, the destruction of the civilization, the loss of knowledge, then 5,000 years ago, the dynastic Egyptians show up and they see these structures, and of course they adopt them. And it's quite possible that Khufu said, "Put my name on that building because I am the pharaoh." And the other thing is that the Grand Gallery. If you go into the Grand Gallery, there's no reason why it would be immense the way it is to access a place where you're burying the king. The sonics and vibrational characteristics was farther to the west, and you can see it in the topography. It was a much bigger, wider river, and that's where these tunnels connect to. They connect to the ancient Nile, strictly out of bounds, unless you use it. And this is another one. Again, it's 10 feet by 12 feet and drops down approximately 100 feet. So because of his connections, we were able to go underneath the Giza Plateau. And this is level 1. And these openings were everywhere, but we only had 4 hours. He told me that this is level 1, that there are at least 2 levels beneath it. So we're going back in April, and I would like to go into level 2 if possible. And the best book on the subject, I believe, of ancient pre-dynastic Egypt is this book written by Stephen Naylor, and it's called The Land of Osiris because what he talks about is from the oral tradition perspective, the fact that the Giza Plateau area is the oldest by far part of ancient Egypt. The rest of it, Aswan area and all the areas with the beautiful, true dynastic Egyptian works, which are masterpieces, are outside of this area. And another subject that fascinates me is the concept of who Osiris was. Because, again, a lot of you have seen the depictions of elongated heads from Akhenaten in that time period. And I'm wondering if it kind of relates to the studies I've been doing in Peru of the elongated skull people. And why it is that people practice cranial deformation in order to look like these mysterious ancient ones. Of course, the automatic idea goes to that these, people were aliens or related. We are presently doing DNA testing of the ancient Paracas people of Peru. It's taken a long time, though, because the DNA is more than 2,000 years old, so it's very time-consuming and expensive to get the results. But once I do get results, I will. This is another example of Yusuf with cut stone surface. The diameter of the saw that would have cut through this basalt would have been at least 6 meters to 8 meters in diameter, and the cutting pattern, which means that every rotation of the saw makes a groove or makes an impression in the stone as it's moving. The speed at which this saw moved, by some experts, is twice the speed of what a 21st century saw can do. And these we find as well. We find these scattered all over the place. Precision drill holes in the middle of the desert. Nobody in recent times would go out there with a drill to core sample something like this, because there are lots of them. But it takes an eye to see them. This gives you a sense of the size of them. And again, the feed rate, which is the rate at which the cutter is going through the stone, in this case rose granite, is approximately at least twice the speed of what a modern diamond cutting drill can do. And unfortunately, you can't see this too well, but this will show you the impression. I have lots of photos on my website, etc., but you see the pattern of the cut as it goes. It's approximately every 2 to 3 millimeters is one rotation of this cutting tool. We also find strange things like this. This material is called quartzite. It's very hard. And these strange tub-looking things were not originally in this place at Abu Gharaib, which is in the desert of Egypt, but they were scattered about. Nobody has any idea what they were for, but conventional Egyptology says that they were the bowls, or they were giant bowls for the sacrificial blood of special bulls for some reason. But the thing is, anybody who's ever made a saint, the trouble is once you get the blood in the bowl, how do you get the blood out of the bowl when the drain hole is only halfway down? The drain hole should be at the bottom or lower down. But again, in each one of these, you have this very precise, cored-out drill hole. And then, here's Irene. And this is the Serapeum, which is completely amazing. It's only been opened or reopened for a year because it was thought too dangerous to go inside because the ceiling is supposedly unstable. But these are boxes made of gray granite and rose granite. The boxes themselves weigh 70 tons, and the lids weigh 10 to 15 tons. These are located, there are 28 of them, I believe. They're in a tunnel underneath the desert. No one knows how they got the boxes in to begin with, how they moved them from the quarry 500 miles away. But also the lid, for some reason, was cut out of the same block of stone. They fit together because they were once one piece. And again, Christopher Dunn has taken his instruments and measured the surfaces outside and inside, and they are within 2/10,000ths of an inch in precision of flatness. And this is Stephen Mailer, but this is an incredible example of the fact that, again, the precision of this surface is as close to being perfectly flat as is technically possible, and yet the hieroglyphics on them look like they were done with a nail or a screwdriver. They are so awful in terms of quality. So most Egyptologists say, well, because we're reading what's written on the box, and the box is telling us who made it and how it was made. But that is like somebody going up to a Maserati that was just made after someone has taken a key and carved a story into it and said, Bob the plumber made and designed this car. It's the same kind of story.